From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Gemma Gaudette. More Idaho Matters right now. For 65 years, the Ada County Medical Society has been bringing doctors and medical professionals together to build a stronger community. And since 1991, the ACMS has recognized those exemplifying the highest professional ideals with their Physician of the Year award. Now, past recipients include the CMO of St. Luke's Health System, Dr. Jim Souza, Dr. Sky Blue, and state epidemiologist Dr. Christine Hahn. Well, this year, the ACMS decided to diversify that recognition with a Friend of Medicine Award to recognize any individual or organization who has contributed significantly as an advocate and champion of the local medical community and healthcare ecosystem. So here to tell us more is the executive director of the ACMS, Stephen Reams. Stephen, nice to have you on the show.
Thanks, Gemma. Good to be here.
So for folks who aren't familiar, tell us what the ACMS is.
So Ada County Medical Society is your local physicians membership association. I like to call it the Chamber of Commerce for doctors. You know, every single occupation or profession has a society or an association that brings together people who are doing the same thing for the purpose of education and networking, encouragement, marketing sometimes, referral patterns, all these things. And physicians have the same type of thing. ACMS is a component society of the State Medical Association, the Idaho Medical Association, but we're focused on local physicians in Ada and Elmore County.
So about how many members do you have, and are they all physicians?
They are not all physicians. In fact, the greatest amount of growth of our membership in the 10 years that I've been here has been among non-physicians, such as nurse practitioners and physician assistants, and now with the new private medical school, medical students. And actually, the number of physicians has remained relatively stable over those number of years. But all told, that's 3,000 members, and about half of which are physicians.
So tell us about the Physician of the Year Award. What is it, and how have you in the past chosen who to recognize?
Yeah, so the Physician of the Year Award has been around since 1991 when you started with that. And John Swartley was our first physician winner of that. I don't know Dr. Swartley. I don't know why he was chosen that. When I look on the couple of plaques that I have here, I can only recognize those kind of in the last 20 years. And so there's a lot of history here. And every year the board of directors has been the one that selected those. And every year the board of directors has a hard time selecting those. And so this past year, the board decided to diversify the number of awards and to have a selection committee that wasn't made of board members. You know, sometimes you get the same people around the table and you start talking about just the same people when you thought we really need to get out into the membership and find out who it is that they're thinking about to be honored. So we actually diversified that into 5 awards this year. Typically it was like, are they, you know, representative of the ideals? Are they mentors? And are they this and that? And it's like, nobody can achieve all those things. So why don't we make individual categories that are a little more honed in and dialed in? And that allows us to recognize more people. And the funny thing is, even with 5 awards, our awards committee said, we need more awards. There's so many more people that we want to recognize, because they do recognize so many physicians here are doing extraordinary work in the community.
So what are the new categories?
Yeah, so the new categories are the Lifetime Achievement Award, and this recognizes an ACMS member physician whose life and career are a standout example of professional medical ideals. And our honoree this year is newly retired Dr. Stephen Ryder. He's from the St. Alphonsus Heart Institute, a cardiologist who's been in the community for a long time and just top level interventional cardiology work. He's, you know, saved countless lives with the work that he's done. His honor by Trinity Health, by St. Alphonsus, is that they named the Boise Cath Lab after him, and in his honor. So yeah, so he's a great guy, and we're just delighted to have him still around the community, because a lot of, you know, doctors are still going to call him and say, hey, what do you think about this? He's just been an excellent mentor and leader to others. The second award is the Exemplary Patient Care Award, and this recognizes a member physician who demonstrates exceedingly strong patient care both in interactions and medical outcomes. And this year's award winner is Dr. Jerry Perez, Dr. Gerardo Perez. He's from the St. Luke's Cancer Institute, and he's a gynecologic oncologist. So that's the specialty that's working with women who have cancer in the parts that are specific to women. So that's a tough profession to be in. But Dr. Perez has just been, as somebody who nominated him said, he's responded to literally any obstetric or gynecological surgical emergency, often returning early or urgently from time off to care for patients in the clinic. So just the most heartbreaking, wrenching circumstances, he's been there, doing cutting edge protocols, bringing them to Boise and things like that. Our third category is the Notable Community Impact Award. This recognizes an ACMS member physician for outstanding achievements in local community service and involvement. And our honoree is Dr. Alejandro Necochea. He's a hospitalist at St. Luke's Health System, but he's really invested in their community health matters. He's the director, the medical director of their community health work, and is really involved in multiple things like Genesis Community Health, Whittier Elementary School, and kind of other institutions that serve marginalized populations. Moreover, he's very active in advocating on the political front with the Idaho Medical Association and the chair of the Public Health Committee. Our fourth award is the Vitality Champion Award. In fact, the last time I was on your show here several years ago with Dr. Frank Johnson, we talked about physician vitality and the work that we do. And we thought we have to have an award that recognizes an ACMS member physician providing significant leadership and energy to advance the well-being of medical staff. And for those around the medical community, this will be like a no-brainer. Dr. Deb Roman of Finding Health. She's an independent family practice doctor. She's actually our past president right now, and has been really for the past decade, the standout leader, really advocating, organizing, bringing together people to really help think about how do we take care of the people who are taking care of the community. And Dr. Roman has just been an amazing leader, both for me personally, for the organization, and for several initiatives in the community. And then finally, this is kind of a unique category because we wanted to recognize that sometimes there are people who are not physicians, not members, and not even people, but institutions or organizations. This is our Friend of Medicine Award, and it recognizes those who've contributed significantly as an advocate and champion of the local medical community and the healthcare ecosystem. And so I'm really happy to announce our 2025 honoree is Boise State Public Radio's Idaho Matters. Woo!
I have to tell you, this was very shocking and surprising to learn this news. And I am curious, Stephen, the process as to how our little show was selected. I mean, I think sometimes, and I ask this because I think sometimes we don't necessarily think about what we do in the community because we're so busy doing our job, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, let me start by saying, a lot of Idaho physicians feel very beleaguered by the current circumstances and environment that they find themselves in here in Idaho. And so to have a media outlet such as yourselves that has a wide impact across the state to highlight evidence-based care, to highlight what are the current realities on the ground, what are the experts who have spent a decade or more in training plus practice, what are they saying, to have that out in the community, that means a lot to physicians. What an encouragement it is to have a platform to be able to share the things that are going on in their minds, and the decisions that healthcare systems and hospitals and independent providers and practitioners, the decisions they're making and why they're making them. I mean, so much of our healthcare that exists, we come to a physician, for example, and we don't even think about all the things that are going on there. So again, it's just such an encouragement to have timely, fact-based updates on, COVID and seasonal health issues and climate change and all the issues. Healthcare is not just a tiny, narrow thing of epidemiology, although that's been the focus for the past 5 years in many ways, but it's about all the things, healthcare policy and how use of certain materials or supplies affects healthcare climate, affects the climate in general, environmental climate in general, that healthcare can have an impact on. So really the work that you and producer Samantha Wright and assistant producer Hannah Gardosky have done is just amazing. So the physician community, that was the conversation around the table, is it's not just any one person. Dr. David Pate's been on the show. Of course, he's been a huge impact as part of this as well, and a standout physician to represent a lot of what medicine's done. So all of those conversations kind of went into the mix, and especially to start this new award kind of series, new categories, to start with not a physician, not an individual, but to start with an institution, that kind of helped break that out of just physicians of the year, but others who are impacting healthcare in a positive way. So we thank you for all that you guys have done for the community.
Well, we are so overwhelmed and really so thankful for the recognition, Steve. So we're going to flip things around a bit, and Steve is going to become the interviewer on this next segment.
Tell me a little bit about the history of Idaho Matters. When did you guys start the program, and what was kind of the inception of this and catalyst for the show?
Sam, I'll let you take that because you were here at Boise State Public Radio before I was, and so in a lot more of the conversations about the inception of the show.
Yeah, and folks who worked here have been trying to get a daily talk show on the air for years before we started, and there were many ideas and attempts, and they just never got off the ground. And finally, we got up and running. Gemma was hired to be host, and I was at that time doing All Things Considered hosting. And they said, hey, could you split your time between the show and NATC? And I said, sure. And that didn't work because the show
needed you full time.
The show needed me and I needed it. I tell you, it has been such a ride. But that's where it got started. The idea was to do a live daily talk show about Idaho and Idahoans. And sometimes we go outside the boundaries of that, but it's always comes back to how does that affect Idaho? Or, even if we're talking to somebody about space, and Mars, it's like, well, how does that affect people in Idaho? Yeah. Because there's just not enough of that. There's not enough, especially in the media landscape now that's disappearing. And so that was the idea behind it. And we got it out, we got it running, and we have been running ever since.
Well, I came on board in November of 2017, and then the show officially went on the air on April 23rd, 2018. And the fact that we just celebrated 7 years, Stephen, is nuts to me because I feel like our show's about 2 years old.
Well, there's something about the time compression in this post-COVID era what year was that?
Exactly. Yeah, I know. Yeah, there's that.
I just tell your listeners a little bit about the behind the scenes from a production standpoint. What goes into producing a daily show of the length that you have? I don't think people understand perhaps all the moving parts that go in here.
Well, I can say, and I will let Sam explain this more since she is the senior producer. But I mean, the amount of reading and research that I do is mind-numbing. I mean, truly, because I have to have an understanding of every topic that we are going to be discussing. So, and even though, yes, there's questions and all of that that are in the script for me, I need to have a broader understanding of that. So from my standpoint, a lot of research and a lot of reading. But Sam can really talk about the true kind of behind the scenes, because this is a beast you feed every single day. So right. Once one show is done, we're off to the next one, but it's not like, oh, what are we doing tomorrow? I mean, we have to be a good week, 2 weeks out. I mean, for the most part, to make sure that if somebody doesn't show up, or if there's, an emergency or something like that that the show can move forward. I mean, for example, almost 2 months ago on a Sunday evening, Sam got a text from me saying, so I'm not going to be at work and I'm not sure when I'm going to be back because I'm about to go into surgery because I have to get my appendix out. Oh. That threw a wrench in the Idaho Matters plans for a couple of weeks. But I mean, Sam, talk maybe about that because that's not unusual. I mean, it's unusual when one of us has emergency surgery. It's not unusual that there is a breaking story or something developing and we have to flip everything on a dime.
It is, that happens all the time. You would be surprised at how often, we have the perfect show or the perfect couple of shows lined up, and then we just, have to toss it all out the window because of breaking news, or, well, most recently probably would be the passing of the Pope Francis. Mm. And we wanted to get something on to talk about that and how it's affecting folks in Idaho. And so we had to move things around. And as you know, we have 4 segments a day. And so, a segment had to move or change or alter or be readjusted. It happens all the time. And it's a constant teamwork effort. It is myself and Gemma, and as you said, our other producer, Hannah Gardosky, and we spend every morning, sometimes very, very early in the morning, writing, researching, putting the show together, and then doing the show, which involves sound checks and audio production and promos and billboards. And then after the show, Hannah is in charge of the web. So everything you see that goes up online or on a podcast, that's Hannah's handiwork. And then all of us after the show, we start booking and writing and researching the next day's show because it never ends. It never, ever, ever ends. And I will say, Gemma has talked about a lot about what she does. And I've talked a little bit about what I do, but I just brought Hannah Gardosky in because that's one of the things we do magically is behind the scenes do stuff while interviews are going on. Hannah, unmute yourself, please. Stephen Reams is with us, and we're talking about the Friend of Medicine Award. Tell Steve what you do every day to get the show on the air in like a minute.
Mostly what I do is a lot of juggling. And that includes putting together a billboard and 4 promos every day, and often a lot, and I mean a lot of emails, communicating with the guests that we're going to have on the show, making sure that we have what we need from them and they have what they need from us, and most importantly, that they feel comfortable. From there, we have sound check, and then we're double checking our scripts and making sure everything is polished because, quite simply, the writing never seems to stop. So I guess in a nutshell, a very, very small nutshell, that's what I do to help get the show ready every day.
And then after the show, you get to do web every day. Tell us how much you enjoy that.
I have a love-hate relationship with web, but mostly love because even though it's a lot of hard work, once it goes live on our website, it's beautiful and it's just one more way for us to connect with the wonderful community that we have the privilege of serving and talking with each day.
That's great. So I'm just thinking about the grind that you all do every single day, every single week. Certainly, you wouldn't keep doing this with all the labor that you put in unless there were some very meaningful moments for you. Can you talk about some of the maybe meaningful interviews or some of the other awards that you've received from the Idaho Press Club or the Public Media Journalists Association or others? What's been some of the standout moments that each of you have had in producing the show that really makes it worth it?
Do you want to start, Sam?
Sure. I love talking. It's in my actually on the website. If you look on my profile, it says I think in a past life I was a town crier because I just like to get information and then share information. And, as also partly a gossip, I like to share it first. But I love to find those stories and share those stories. And there have been so many over the years. I have to say one of my personal favorites is the parachuting beaver story.
Yes. Oh, I wish I were wearing my socks today.
Because
from NPR.
that was just sort of it came through Fish and Game as a normal. We get Fish and Game press releases all the time, and I looked at it and I went, oh goodness, that is a story that cannot go by. And I was introduced to the wonderful world of the parachuting beavers and their story. And what a great story. What a fascinating story, not only about, what happened, but Idaho ecology and how things work and how things work now, because we don't do that now, fortunately for the beavers. But it's just a great story.
And Hannah, what about you?
If there's one thing that I love most in this world, it's a good story. And that's exactly what we work to bring our listeners every day, worthwhile stories. In this job, I get to talk with so many interesting and important people, and that includes everyone from public land stewards to local business owners, students, athletes, artists, and activists. And those conversations are what make me excited to get up every day. This line of work gives us an incredible ability to connect. And I mean, what's more important than that?
The Friend of Medicine Award was given not just in terms of your general coverage, even before COVID, but you did begin the Doctors Roundtable to cover COVID era issues and have continued with that. And this is part of the reason why we gave you the award. Can you talk about the impact you have seen that have on some of the conversations around healthcare in Idaho?
Well, I have to tell you, I think what's interesting, just so that people have some background on this, is we started the Doctors Roundtable, as you said, right at the start of COVID. And what it was that we were getting so many emails into our Idaho Matters inbox for questions, medical questions, people wanting answers about things. And I think because there was so much information, there was disinformation, I don't think people knew where to turn. So Sam and I were kind of just, basically just throwing out ideas. And we're like, do you think we could get Dr. Pate to come on the show and answer these questions? But do you think that we could get doctors from both St. Al's and St. Luke's to come on? But gosh, that's such a big ask because they're so overwhelmed. Would they actually do this? And we thought, well, let's reach out and ask. The answer is probably going to be no because they're all so overwhelmed. It was a resounding yes. So I think about the first 2 years that the Doctors Roundtable was on, it was always 3 doctors answering COVID-related questions. And then as we were going through the pandemic, all of a sudden there were other public health issues that people started having questions about. And then we kind of just started realizing that it was like, this needs to be broadened to public health because we really don't talk about public health that much. At least we didn't, right? And what we found, we've been doing this for 5 years now with Dr. Pate every Wednesday. There are always topics to talk about around public health. And and we still answer listener questions when they have them or anything around public health. I hope that what we have done and what we continue to do is that people see the value in public health. They see the value in having scientific facts around public health. They see the value in understanding what's going on, not just within our United States government around health, but globally, because we are a global society and public health impacts all of us globally. So we need to know from a local standpoint how something impacts us. But I think we also need to know nationally, internationally, how all of this impacts us and how organizations work together or maybe don't work together. And at the end of the day, bottom line, how that impacts each of us in our own home, in our own, in the ways that we go about choosing to deal with our own health.
Congratulations once again to you, Samantha Wright, producer, to you, host Gemma Gaudet. We're so happy to be able to share this with the public and to applaud you once again for all the work that you do.
And Hannah.
Well,
Yay,
Stephen. Yay. And we want to say just on behalf of the Idaho Matters team, we are beyond honored to receive this award and grateful for the recognition of all of the medical coverage over the past 7 years. And a huge thank you to Dr. Pate, who generously donates his time every week.
Yeah, he doesn't get paid for that.
And he does not get paid. He gets a pair of socks every once in a while to say thanks. So
That's it, really, literally.
Really.
Yeah, we're not kidding.
literally,
We're not kidding.
We are not joking. We're not joking. But with that said, we have to wrap things up. A big thank you to the Executive Director of the Ada County Medical Society, Stephen Reams, talking about the Friend of Medicine Award. The awards will be given out tonight at their annual membership meeting, which is only open for members. I'm Gemma Gaudette, and this is Idaho Matters.